There's one photograph from 1992 that Billy Crystal has never let go of, and the story behind it still makes him laugh like it happened yesterday. He was being roasted at the famous Friars Club, sitting at the head table while comedians took turns making fun of him. Right behind him was Robin Williams, completely committed to one of the wildest comedy bits imaginable. Robin announced to the room that he was Billy Crystal's rumpled foreskin, then stayed in character as if it were the most serious performance of his career. The crowd completely lost it. People were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. Even decades later, when Billy shared the memory during a late-night interview, he struggled to finish the story because he kept laughing. It wasn't just the joke that made it unforgettable. It was the bond between two friends who had known each other long before either became household names. That is the Robin Williams Billy Crystal still remembers. Not the heartbreaking headlines. Not the sad memories that came to define public conversations after August 2014. Billy remembers the friend who would do absolutely anything to make people laugh. Robin had a rare gift. He could steal every bit of attention in the room without making anyone else feel small. At 78 years old, Billy Crystal still tells these stories because he believes people deserve to remember the real Robin, not just the final chapter of his life. Their friendship began during the late 1970s on the Los Angeles comedy circuit. They were two young stand-up comics performing in small clubs, chasing opportunities and hoping someone important would notice them. Neither man could have imagined how famous they would eventually become, but even back then there was something different about Robin Williams. Every time he stepped onto a stage, people immediately knew they were watching someone extraordinary. Robin's childhood looked almost perfect from the outside. Born on July 21, 1951 in Chicago, he was the son of a senior Ford executive. His family later moved into an enormous 40-room farmhouse in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. It was the kind of home most people could only dream about, complete with staff and every comfort money could buy. From a distance, it seemed like a charmed life. He attended the prestigious Detroit Country Day School, became class president, and earned a reputation for making everyone laugh. Friends remembered him as kind, quick-witted, and naturally funny. He could light up almost any room without even trying. But behind that image was a much quieter reality. The house was enormous, and his parents were often busy with work and responsibilities. Robin spent long periods by himself, with the family's maid becoming one of the people he saw most often. To fill the silence, he invented entire imaginary worlds using toy soldiers and endless stories. Those lonely hours helped shape the imagination that would later amaze millions of people around the world. His talent eventually earned him a scholarship to the prestigious Juilliard School. Only 2 students entered the advanced acting program that year. The other was Christopher Reeve. The 2 young actors quickly formed a close friendship while pushing each other to become better performers. Even with such an incredible opportunity, Robin realized something important. The classroom could only teach him so much. Live audiences gave him an energy that no lecture or rehearsal ever could. During his junior year, he made the bold decision to leave Juilliard and chase stand-up comedy full-time. It was a huge gamble, but one that completely changed his future. Robin first built his reputation around the Bay Area comedy clubs before making his way to Los Angeles. Once he arrived, everything seemed to happen almost overnight. His speed, creativity, and fearless improvisation left audiences stunned. There were very few performers who could match what he could do on stage. His breakthrough came quickly. In 1979, he won the Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album with Reality. What a concept. Soon afterward, he was cast as the unforgettable alien Mork in Mork and Mindy. Within a single television season, Robin Williams became one of the biggest comedy stars in America. Before reaching the age of 30, he had already achieved a level of success that many performers spend an entire lifetime chasing. Yet Billy Crystal always says the most interesting version of Robin wasn't the celebrity everyone watched on television. It was the friend behind the scenes. They met at parties, comedy clubs, and legendary Friars Club roasts, where they constantly challenged each other to be even funnier. They trusted one another enough to push every joke further, knowing neither would ever take it personally. Billy has often spoken about those years with enormous affection. Before schedules became impossible and fame complicated everything, Robin would suddenly appear without warning. He never needed an invitation. He would simply walk into a room, and within moments, every conversation stopped. Everyone wanted to know what Robin was about to do next because nobody could ever predict it. But Billy also witnessed another side of Robin that rarely appeared in magazine interviews. During the late 1970s, cocaine had become deeply woven into parts of the entertainment industry. For many comedians and performers, it was treated almost like another part of the nightlife. Robin, whose energy already seemed limitless, became caught in that dangerous environment. People who knew him during that period later recalled seeing him accept cocaine from complete strangers without even asking questions. If someone approached him holding a spoon, he would simply lean forward. According to people who worked with him, the pace became impossible to ignore. The director of Mork and Mindy later described mornings when Robin arrived on set exhausted after long nights that reportedly mixed cocaine with heavy drinking. Some days he was barely functioning before filming even began. Behind the non-stop laughter, there were signs that the pressure and lifestyle were taking a serious toll. Everything changed in March 1982. John Belushi died after a night spent in many of the same social circles Robin had been moving through. The two men were friends, and Robin had seen him shortly before his death. Suddenly, the danger was no longer something happening to strangers. It became deeply personal. Losing someone so close forced Robin to confront the reality of where that path could lead. Around the same time, Robin was preparing to become a father for the first time. Those two events together pushed him toward a life-changing decision. He stopped drinking and stopped using drugs. Years later, he told People magazine that Belushi's death frightened many people throughout the entertainment business and forced them to rethink the direction their lives were taking. Robin later admitted there had been nights when he woke up in the back seat of his own car with the key still in the ignition and no clear memory of how he had gotten there. Those moments convinced him something had to change before it was too late. What replaced addiction was an entirely different obsession: cycling. Robin became passionate about riding and developed a close friendship with bike shop owner Tony Tom. He openly told him that cycling was far better for him than cocaine, and even said it had saved his life. Robin rarely used words that were strong about his own experiences, making that statement especially meaningful. His sobriety lasted for roughly 20 years. During those decades, Robin Williams created the performances that would define his remarkable career and earn the admiration of audiences across generations. Good Morning Vietnam in 1987 revealed how extraordinary his improvisational talent could become when paired with a fully developed character. Many of the unforgettable radio broadcasts were created through long, unscripted performances before editors shaped them into the finished film. The result felt completely alive. Then came Dead Poets Society in 1989, showing audiences a completely different side of Robin Williams. Instead of explosive energy, he relied on calm confidence, gentle emotion, and quiet inspiration. His performance proved he could move people just as deeply through silence as through rapid-fire comedy. Not long afterward, Aladdin introduced yet another side of his incredible talent. Free from appearing on screen himself, Robin poured endless imagination into the genie, creating one of the most unforgettable animated performances ever recorded. His voice alone became larger than life, reminding audiences once again that there seemed to be no limit to what Robin Williams could do. The creative teams behind Aladdin have often said Robin Williams gave them far more than a voice performance. He would step into the recording booth and unleash wave after wave of hilarious improvised characters, jokes, and impressions. There was so much brilliant material that the animators actually redesigned scenes around what Robin created on the spot because his ideas were often better than anything written in the script. Then came Mrs. Doubtfire in 1993, one of the most beloved comedies of its generation. Beneath all the laughter was the emotional story of a father desperately trying to stay close to his children. Robin reportedly improvised for hours during filming, leaving editors with an overwhelming amount of material to sort through. They had far more unforgettable moments than they could possibly fit into one movie. A few years later, The Birdcage paired Robin with Nathan Lane in a completely different kind of performance. Instead of trying to dominate every scene, Robin deliberately held back, allowing Lane's larger-than-life character to shine while quietly giving the film its emotional balance. It showed yet again that Robin knew exactly when to steal the spotlight and when to hand it to someone else. Then came Good Will Hunting in 1997, the role that finally earned Robin Williams his Academy Award after 3 previous nominations. Unlike many of his famous performances, this one relied on patience, quiet emotion, and careful listening rather than non-stop energy. One unforgettable scene where his character gently repeats, "It's not your fault," to Matt Damon's troubled young genius, has become one of the most quoted moments in modern cinema. It worked because Robin understood something deeply human about pain, healing, and compassion. By every measure, Robin Williams stood among the greatest entertainers of his generation. Few performers could move so effortlessly between explosive comedy and heartbreaking drama. He could leave audiences laughing one moment and completely speechless the next, a combination that very few actors have ever matched. Through every stage of that remarkable journey, Billy Crystal remained one of Robin's closest friends. He wasn't simply another celebrity who occasionally crossed paths with him. Billy had known Robin since the days of tiny comedy clubs before fame transformed both of their lives. He had shared countless stages, endless jokes, private conversations, and unforgettable memories with someone who never stopped surprising him. Their friendship also connected them to another important figure from Robin's life, Christopher Reeve. Robin and Christopher had first met during their years together at Juilliard, forming a friendship that lasted decades. Everything changed in 1995 after Reeve suffered the devastating horseback riding accident that left him paralyzed. When Christopher regained consciousness in the hospital, he faced unimaginable uncertainty about the future. During that painful period, Robin Williams arrived with a plan that only he could have imagined. Disguised as an eccentric Russian doctor and speaking in a wildly exaggerated accent, he burst into the hospital room determined to make his oldest friend laugh. According to Christopher Reeve, it worked. For the first time since the accident, he laughed. Later, Reeve shared how much that single moment meant during one of the darkest periods of his life. Billy Crystal treasured that story because it captured something many people overlooked. Robin's comedy wasn't separate from his kindness. His humor was often the way he cared for the people he loved most. Billy and Robin also created unforgettable moments together in public. Whether performing at Friars Club roasts or entertaining friends at private gatherings, they constantly challenged each other with outrageous jokes. To outsiders, the insult sounded brutal, but comedians often communicate differently. The sharper the joke, the greater the trust behind it. Their audiences heard relentless teasing, while those closest to them recognized genuine affection hidden beneath every punchline. Their friendship extended far beyond comedy clubs. Alongside Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal became one of the driving forces behind Comic Relief, the charity specials that raised tens of millions of dollars to support programs helping people experiencing homelessness throughout the United States. Year after year, they returned to the stage, not because they needed more fame, but because they believed the cause deserved their time and energy. That commitment lasted for more than 2 decades. It became one of the quieter parts of Robin Williams's remarkable legacy, often overshadowed by blockbuster movies and later headlines. Yet Billy Crystal frequently points to Comic Relief when explaining who Robin really was. Behind all the incredible talent was someone who genuinely wanted to help others whenever he could. Then, in 2003, another difficult chapter quietly began. While filming a movie in Alaska, Robin found himself isolated for long stretches. Later, he admitted feeling lonely and frightened in ways he recognized as especially dangerous given his past struggles. He convinced himself that having just one drink wouldn't matter. But addiction rarely works that way. Within days, the old habits returned. Robin later joked that he carried so many bottles home in shopping bags that he sounded like a wind chime walking down the street. Even while describing painful experiences, he somehow managed to find humor. Robin also spoke openly about the mental battle addiction creates. He once explained that alcoholism has a voice that constantly whispers dangerous ideas, encouraging a person to believe they can safely return to drinking. It was an honest description of a struggle many people quietly face. He entered rehabilitation in 2006. Like many people dealing with addiction, recovery wasn't always a straight line. There were setbacks along the way. In 2014, he returned for additional treatment at the Hazelden Foundation in Minnesota, hoping once again to regain solid ground. What almost nobody realized at the time was that something much more serious had already begun happening. During late 2013, Robin started experiencing a growing list of strange symptoms that didn't seem connected. He struggled with insomnia. Anxiety became increasingly intense without any obvious explanation. He developed heartburn and noticed a slight tremor in his left hand. Doctors believed it was connected to an old shoulder injury. At the time, nobody suspected something far more complex was unfolding. His wife, Susan Schneider Williams, would later describe those heartbreaking months in a powerful essay titled "The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain." She explained how the symptoms slowly multiplied, creating confusion for everyone around him. As winter arrived, Robin began experiencing severe memory problems along with episodes of paranoia and frightening confusion. While filming Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, he reportedly struggled to remember lines that once would have come effortlessly. For someone whose career had been built on lightning-fast thinking and endless improvisation, it was deeply unsettling. Susan later wrote that Robin understood something was terribly wrong. He could feel his mind changing, but nobody could tell him why. That uncertainty became one of the hardest parts of his struggle. Even then, Robin tried to protect the people around him. For decades, he had been the person everyone counted on to lift the mood, make people laugh, and bring joy into every room. He wasn't ready to let anyone see how much he was suffering. As the months passed, however, the symptoms became impossible to hide. His walk grew slower. Finding simple words became more difficult. The tremor in his hand continued. He also developed problems judging distance and depth. Susan described moments when his face would become unusually still, almost mask-like, taking away many of the expressive movements that had always been central to his performances. For someone whose entire career depended on movement, expression, and spontaneous creativity, every new symptom felt like another piece of himself slipping away. The most heartbreaking part was that nobody yet understood what was causing it. Only after Robin Williams' death did doctors identify the underlying illness: Lewy body dementia. The progressive brain disease often resembles Parkinson's disease in its early stages and can also produce severe anxiety, confusion, hallucinations, memory problems, and changes in thinking. Those symptoms had quietly been affecting Robin long before anyone recognized the condition. Without a diagnosis, Robin reportedly believed he was simply losing control of his own mind. He had no clear explanation and no understanding of what his brain was going through. That uncertainty added another painful layer to an already overwhelming struggle. On the evening of August 10, 2014, Robin said goodnight to Susan. It was the last conversation they shared. He died the following morning at the age of 63. The news sent shockwaves around the world. Millions mourned the loss of a performer who had spent decades bringing laughter, comfort, and unforgettable characters into people's lives. But for those who truly knew him, the grief reached far beyond the public headlines. For Billy Crystal, this wasn't simply the loss of one of Hollywood's greatest entertainers. It was the loss of the friend who could make an entire room explode with laughter without warning. The friend who once invented an absurd character during a comedy roast simply to make Billy laugh. And the friend whose kindness was every bit as remarkable as his legendary talent. For Billy Crystal, Robin Williams' story has always been deeply personal. And even after all these years, that has never changed. Whenever Robin's name comes up in interviews, Billy tries to stop people from reducing his friend's entire life to one heartbreaking ending. Instead of beginning with tragedy, he starts with laughter. He tells the outrageous, rumpled foreskin story, remembers the endless Friars Club roasts, and talks about the unforgettable years when two young comedians spent every chance they got trying to make each other laugh harder than anyone else could. One of Billy's favorite memories captures that world perfectly. During one Friars Club roast, legendary comedian Alan King tore into Billy with joke after joke so brutally that Billy finally leaned over and whispered that his own mother was sitting at table 5. Without missing a beat, Alan immediately turned toward her and continued the routine. Then Billy's mother stood up and fired right back, telling the entire room not to get her started. The audience erupted because everyone understood the unspoken rule. The sharper the jokes, the stronger the friendship behind them. That was the comedy world Robin Williams loved for more than 30 years. To outsiders, it sounded ruthless. But inside that circle, outrageous insults were often another way of showing respect, affection, and trust. These performers knew exactly how far they could push each other because genuine friendship stood underneath every punchline. Over the years, Billy Crystal has returned to one heartbreaking thought again and again. The greatest tragedy wasn't only that Robin Williams died far too young, although that loss was enormous. It was that a devastating illness slowly began taking pieces of him long before anyone understood what was happening. The disease gradually stole the very gifts that had defined Robin throughout his life. His lightning-fast words became harder to find. His remarkable timing became less reliable. The confidence he had always placed in his own extraordinary mind slowly began slipping away. For someone whose imagination had carried him from a lonely childhood to worldwide fame, that loss was almost impossible to imagine. Billy also believes Robin displayed extraordinary courage during those final months. While quietly facing frightening symptoms that nobody could fully explain, he continued trying to reassure the people around him. Most friends saw a man who seemed exhausted, busy, or simply under pressure. Few realized he was privately struggling with growing confusion and uncertainty while desperately searching for answers. At 78 years old, Billy Crystal still carries every version of Robin Williams in his heart at the same time. He remembers the fearless comedian who could make thousands of people laugh without warning. He remembers the loyal friend who always showed up when someone needed him. He remembers the man who chose sobriety after witnessing the devastating loss of someone close to him and remained committed to that decision for 2 decades. He also remembers someone facing a brain disease that no one around him fully recognized until after his passing. Robin, his family, and even his doctors didn't yet have the answers they needed. That painful reality makes Billy's memories even more important because they remind people that Robin's life was far bigger than its final chapter. That is why Billy still tells outrageous comedy stories. Every time he remembers Robin pretending to be rumpled foreskin at the Friars Club, he laughs all over again. It isn't simply because the joke was hilarious. It's because that laughter brings his friend back, if only for a moment. For Billy Crystal, that is the most honest tribute he can offer. Rather than allowing one heartbreaking day to define an extraordinary life, he chooses to celebrate the kindness, generosity, unforgettable humor, and friendship that made Robin Williams one of the most remarkable people he ever knew. Robin Williams gave the world countless unforgettable performances, but for Billy Crystal, the greatest memory will always be much simpler. It isn't an award, a blockbuster movie, or a famous headline. It's 2 lifelong friends laughing together until they can barely breathe, and making sure that laughter never truly disappears. Thanks for watching. If Robin Williams' incredible talent and unforgettable friendship with Billy Crystal touched you, let us know your favorite Robin Williams memory in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories about the legends who left a lasting mark on Hollywood. See you in the next video.